back, and indeed we are back. Still season 5. We got a very special episode for all. This is episode 10. For that 10th episode, y'all know we had to get some cooking, some special cooking. We have an
no pun intended.
I didn't even think about it. No pun intended.
Well, you did it? I thought
did.
that was intentional. Oh.
But this is a very special episode. This is an episode that has been in the making for a long while now. Immorge and the former crew tried to get our guest on. Just couldn't really line up the timing, but we finally got it done. We got it going now. It's gonna be a great episode for y'all. So without further ado, we want to introduce our guest, Executive Chef, Calvin Metz.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Thank you
sir.
for
Yes,
coming.
sir. So first, we want to just jump into this immediately. Really, you could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and after that, go a little bit into you're a chef, executive chef. Tell us, how your career started. Did you always want to be a chef? Was that your dream as a kid, or is that just something you just ended up coming into because you had that legendary skill of just being a great cook?
I like to say legendary. I like that part. So I'm from Chicago originally. I did a lot of cooking with my grandmother. She was a teacher's aide, and so my parents were going to school and working at full-time jobs with her. So we were going back to my grandmother's house for every vacation, like Christmas break, spring break, summertime, whatever. We were always there. And it was like, I have a bunch of cousins, and I was one of the youngest ones, and I levitated towards the kitchen. And so that kind of got the initial thing started inside of me, whatever. It was just like the smells of the kitchen, whatever, and always being around food. And so from there, I kind of I thought I was gonna be a lawyer. I told you earlier. I went to college. I was in a political science major. I got to my senior year, and I was about to start doing the LSATs and stuff like that. And I realized that I didn't really love it as much as I loved to cook. And so I was in college, and I was cooking on my George Foreman grill. I had 2 burners that I hit. I was an RA as well too, right? And so it was illegal to have it at the time. My college is closed, so we're good. It was legal to have it at the time, whatever. I had 2 burners, and I used to make food for my roommates, do barbecues in my room and stuff like that, whatever.
Oh, wow.
And that really got me started on really wanting to really develop the food scene of it, right? And that was when the Food Network was really getting big, all the celebrity chefs and stuff like that. And so my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, encouraged me to go and do a tour of a cooking school. I walked into Kendall College in Chicago, and I fell in love. And I walked in, it was like, that was it, right? And so I ended up getting my bachelor's degree in political science. After that, I went to culinary school at Kendall College in Chicago. And then I just kind of made my way up the ranks from there.
So as a kid, what would you say was your favorite thing to cook? What was just your favorite food as a kid, favorite thing to cook? Just something you could someone's like, cook something for us real quick. What was that go-to?
Yeah, and then follow up too, what is it now?
Yeah.
So originally, I was into baking, right? And so I used to make cheesecakes.
Oh.
So I used to do,
I love cheesecake.
My stick was like the cheesecake or whatever, and I would do it for birthdays and stuff like that just for my family members, right? And then it was anything that was new and creative. I used to watch PBS Chicago, Public Station, whatever, and I used to watch Chef Paul Prudhomme, and he would do Cajun food, whatever. So I was really big into Cajun food, the spices of it, whatever, and just the New Orleans style and the fusion between the French and African stuff, whatever, and all the things came together and culminated together. And I really was digging that from back in the day. Yeah.
I love Creole food.
Yeah, and then now it's not much change. Anything that's spicy, I like a little spice to it.
Yep.
I feel like part of the fun of being a chef is kind of like you're playing in a kitchen, and I kind of balance out the sweet with the savory, the salty with the spicy, whatever, and kind of playing with something new, whatever. And I like to really be able to travel the world while being inside of the kitchen.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's my idea of. I told you I didn't travel much, whatever, but that's my way of traveling, right?
That's a great way to put it too.
Right?
Yeah. I just realized this episode's gonna make me hungry the whole time. It's about to make me hungry, yeah.
Shit, I'm already hungry. So you said you went to culinary school. So after you graduated culinary school, what was your first job right out of culinary school? What was the first place that you went to go work at?
So while I was in school, I worked at Palmer House Hilton. I was an intern at the Palmer House. It's one of the historic hotels in downtown Chicago. I was there for 6 months. They did not hire me on for a position, and so because of that, I went to work for Intercontinental Hotel on Michigan Avenue. I was there. I started at the lowest of the low. I had 2 college degrees, and I started at an entry-level position, making $8 an hour, cutting bagels for bagel trays and doing fruit carvings and stuff like that. Very when you're in culinary school or you're in any kind of school, they tell you how you're going to be the top of the top when you get out of school, right? That's not true. not true at all.
That's, yeah.
And so you start all the way at the bottom, and I kind of worked my way up. And so I started at an entry-level position, even though I had the college degrees, I had the experience to do it, and I had an internship that I already worked at a historic hotel before. Started at the bottom and kind of worked my way up. So.
And what is that grind like? Does there ever times where it just gets kind of consuming? We're just like, man, I'm ready to just cook everything. I'm done, cutting up bagels. I'm done, cracking eggs. I want to really get into it. Is there times where you're just really just down? You just really had yourself motivated to do something more, but you just felt limited in a sense?
Yeah, I mean, when you go, like I said, when you go to school, they tell you you're going to be a chef. And so in my school at Kendall, they have this wall of fame, and you walk down a wall, and it's all these celebrity chefs that went to that school, right? And so you're never thinking in your head that when I get out, I'm going to start at the bottom. You're thinking I'm going to get out, I'm going to run with it, right? I'm going to go flying with my wings out, whatever, right? And that wasn't the case. And so for me, the grind was hard. I mean, I came out, I had student loans up to here. I still have those same student loans, but it was the dedication of it, right? Because you miss out on holidays. You miss out on weekends, you miss out on nightlife like that. So my friends are going out and doing things with her, and I'm like, I need to get myself back in the kitchen, right? I'm trying to learn everything I can, be a sponge. And I was working downtown Chicago. In Chicago, most of the cooks in the kitchen are Latin American. And so there's language barriers as well too. We had a lot of cooks from Asia. We had a lot of Chinese cooks as well too. And so being in a kitchen in an environment, you're having to kind of learn it on the fly. A lot of people are threatened from someone with an education, in a sense that a lot of them people started off with nothing. They're immigrants from other places, whatever, and cooking was an opportunity for them to pay for their stuff for their kids, right? Pay for their family and pay for their nightlife and stuff like that, whatever. And so, growing up through the ranks, a lot of people don't want to show you anything, right? Because if you've been working the station for the last 10 years and you're making all the sauces at the restaurant, if you show somebody else how to make the sauce, then they can potentially take your job, right? And so that was the mindset that a lot of people were in the kitchen. And so since I'm a visual learner, I was learning on the fly. I'm just like, okay, you won't show me how to do it, but I'm gonna watch you do it, right? And so there were a lot of times when I was supposed to be on break, my 30-minute break, and I would just float around into the restaurant kitchen and kind of look over and see what they needed help with, whatever. And a lot of times they said they needed help, and then when they were in the weeds, as we call it in the kitchen, you get a lot of tickets that keep coming in and keep coming in. People are you're in the weeds, right? And then you need help, and so they will let me help them then. And so by helping them in those opportunities, that gave me the opportunity to learn the station, and then you kind of just learn and learn and learn until you can grow into a higher position.
Great, yeah, that's awesome. It seems like I really like how you had many different avenues that you tried to pursue, even to try to go up the ranks, even if they weren't, I guess, you had barriers in order to get there, right? But you still figured out something in order to still have that for yourself, which I really like. So what led you specifically to Notre Dame?
To Notre Dame, so it was the opportunity. So I previously worked at Michael Jordan's Steakhouse.
Question.
Oh, wow.
Question. Did you ever cook for Michael Jordan?
So we cooked for him, but we weren't allowed to talk to him. So
Oh,
it was
man.
Wait, really?
it was inside of it was a 4-star hotel, right? And so we had the same thing we faced at Notre Dame. If a celebrity talks to you, you can talk back to them, whatever, but you're not allowed to initiate a conversation.
I guess that makes sense,
Right?
yeah.
And so they want to be treated as a guest, whatever. And MJ was totally cool. Totally laid back. He'd come and eat in the restaurant. If he didn't want to be bothered, we had private dining rooms that he would sit in, whatever. But he was one for sitting amongst the masses. He would sit at the bar, eat his food, whatever, and then go and sign some autographs when he was done eating and stuff like that. But it was a really good opportunity. But at the same extent, I climbed as high as I could climb there. Right, there were people that had been there before me that were higher positions than I was, whatever, and kind of reached a ceiling a little bit. And Notre Dame was an opportunity that I wasn't looking for at the time. My wife actually found a position on LinkedIn, and she texted to me. She's like, "You're gonna apply for this position?" And I'm like, "I guess I'm applying for this position." And so that brought me to the Morris Inn. And so it was a really opportunity. It was a new hotel. They had 2 restaurants at the time. They only have 1 now. And they didn't really have anybody that that was really looking to push the envelope a little bit, and so I was kind of young meat, a fresh blood. And so I was ready to go, and it gave me the opportunity to kind of grow and really build a career here, so that was a big thing for me.
Very cool.
And what has your experience been like here so far at Notre Dame?
And you mentioned,
You can go.
I was gonna say, you mentioned kind of going up the ranks too. So how did that happen at Notre Dame as well?
Well, it wasn't always positive. I would love if it was, but that doesn't give you the avenues to be resilient, right? And so those opportunities, I call them, in instances where not everyone wants you to succeed in a position, right? So I had 2 people that were above me in the kitchen. Neither one of them working for Notre Dame anymore or whatever, but those are my obstacles, right? when I first started, my boss's boss asked me to fix her. I was walking through the restaurant. Soren's at the restaurant at the time, and he was sitting down having breakfast with his wife. And he was like, Calvin, come over. And I came over to. He's like, fix this menu. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, change it. Be creative. Change it. And so I went, and I'm like, all right, cool. My boss's boss told me to change the menu, right? So I'm gonna go like pump my chest out with her and go do my homework, my research, and change the menu. And so when I came back with her, I didn't realize that it was my boss's menu.
Wow.
Right? And so I'm doing this tasting. I'm doing like trying out these new dishes that I thought about trying with her, right? And I'm getting barbs thrown to me left and right. And I'm like, every idea that I came up with was like being sabotaged. And I'm like, what's going on here, whatever, you know? And so after the fact, I realized that like that was I was cutting part of his menu, right? His recipes, whatever. And like that was the biggest thing for me because I didn't know all the information at the time. And so I think I'm just doing my job, right? My boss's boss told me to do this, whatever, so I'm gonna go execute it and do as best I can. And at the same time, I'm cutting somebody else's legs out from under them. So that was that was the worst situation I've been in, whatever. But we rebounded from there. I mean, we worked together for another year, and then I understood why he was upset, whatever. But like, I was there to do a job, and we don't get a lot of opportunities, especially if you're a certain color, or whatever. So we got to make best of all opportunities you have, and so that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into that a little bit more as well about those opportunities, specifically, you know, being black and the sort of obstacles that you may face. But I want to stay on the topic of Notre Dame, and you were promoted to the executive chef, which is that the highest level you can get to?
Yes, in the
okay.
kitchen. Yeah.
Okay, so highest
Which is
level.
amazing. We love to
amazing,
see it.
Yes.
Amazing.
Congrats. I don't know how long ago it was, but congrats again.
It's been 2 years now. But
2 years. And if I'm not mistaken, you're the first black executive chef in Notre Dame history, correct? Or
Yeah, from my knowledge, yeah, especially at the Morris Inn, for sure.
at the Morrison. So what was that moment like, number one, finally being promoted to executive chef, that highest rank you can be in the kitchen? And then what was that moment like, you know, kind of realizing that you're the first black man or the first black individual to reach that level in Notre Dame history? What was that sort of experience like?
So for me, it happened during COVID. So that was a gift and a curse, right? I mean, there were a lot of things that weren't easy when I was stepping into. The restaurant was open and closed. We had a lot of students staying at the hotel who were under quarantine. So it was a lot of challenges, a lot of adversity to go through to really make it successful. But for me, it was something that I had fought for 15 years.
Wow.
You know, I started my culinary career, and it took me that long to get to that level. You know, and so it was a lot of obstacles, a lot of late nights, a lot of times thinking about quitting or going somewhere else and starting somewhere new. And the perseverance and the resilience was gratifying to actually reach that point, right? So for me to be the first, it's a great opportunity, whatever, but I don't want to be the last.
Absolutely.
You know, I want to keep that door open, whatever, make sure that I'm making it equitable for everybody. You know, not just for myself, whatever, and my family. I want to make sure that it's just an ongoing tradition. It's not a big thing anymore. It's not a big deal, right? To have several black chefs to come after me, whatever. You know, so that's my lasting legacy that I want to leave, is to make sure that I do it right the first time. There's definitely I feel like there's a different level, a different requirement for black chefs. And I kind of build my management style in that way with that knowledge, right? And so when I was early in my career, I wasn't very level-headed, right? Like if I felt there was an injustice going on, I voiced my opinion to my detriment a lot of times. And my wife told me I had to learn how to play the game. And so I learned how to play the game with her, and it took a little bit longer, but I got to where I wanted to get.
That's a hard thing to do, play the game too, because you know you want to be vocal, you want to express these things, but you also feel you have to limit yourself, because you know that if you were to, you know, say the wrong thing or upset the wrong person, that could potentially really hinder you or harm you, you know, job-wise, you know, however that may be. So I understand that for sure, especially going to PWI like Notre Dame. You understand that as a student, sometimes you just got to play the game. That's what my mom says all the time. So Isaiah, just keep on playing the game.
Choose your battles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing too. I mean, because like you see chefs and they have this historic embodiment of being angry and throwing things and being loud and like being very
Chef
like,
Ramsay.
in your face.
Yeah.
Right? And I've experienced chefs like that. And it's like the same thing if your parents yell at you, right? I have kids of my own. If I yell at my kids all day, every day, whatever, they tune me out. Stop listening. Right? So you got to take a different approach. And for us, it's like angry black man yelling in the kitchen again, right? And so I don't yell. I usually don't. Like I find different ways to be effective in the kitchen in my role, whatever. Because if my anger, it only upsets somebody, it makes them be less efficient in their job. it only makes me look bad, right? So if I can do it in a way without yelling or whatever, then that makes it look that much better and that make that much easier to navigate the system, right? And so that's been one of my major components, whatever, is like to make sure I stay calm, make sure I stay consistent, and I'm always even. If my emotions are high and low and stuff like that, that puts my people in a bad environment, whatever. They can't do their best work if I'm all up and down, whatever. So I need to be consistent and make sure that I'm leading them that way, right? And like the same thing with if I'm yelling at people all day long, whatever, I'll be at HR. You know, I'll be without a job. I won't be at Notre Dame very long because that's not the environment that we choose to strive for here.
Yeah, I definitely see the layers of how like you are realizing that you're a black man, so like you're kind of almost not really adjusting, but almost like adjusting or like controlling your behavior in order to like not decide, but I'm trying to figure out the words I'm trying to use, like adjusting your behavior based off of like people's perceptions, which is something that we've talked about before as well. But then like even though you are mentioning that, like I really do see that you actually want like to be like a great leader for like the people who work in your kitchen, and I think that's really admirable. Like you're acknowledging like I'm the executive chef. Like I want to make sure that like people feel safe in my kitchen, people feel like I'm here for them, that kind of thing, and I really admire that. So that's awesome. Yeah.
It's deliberate. I mean, I'm from the west side of Chicago. A lot of people don't make it out of my neighborhood and not into professional careers like I have for myself. And so I didn't make it out by myself. It was the community, my cousins and my friends that I kind of bonded with me and kept me out of trouble to make sure I made it out with her. So it's very important for me to get back. You know, make sure that I'm leaving those breadcrumbs so somebody can pick them up and go and run with it, right? So I know recently I hired one of the chefs I work with at Michael Jordan's, Kim McCormick. He came over to Roy's now. And he's a young black chef there, and so like, this is his first opportunity to be chef. And I want to make sure that I'm setting a good example for him and for everybody else that I come in contact with.
I love that. This all sounds awesome.
Yeah,
I love that a lot.
for sure,
Yeah. Uplifting the community. I love it. Love to see it. Yeah. So the next question I have for you, kind of like a more like bad tone, but were there any instances that you could tell us where you were racially discriminated against in the kitchen, and then also possibly how being a black man might have like hindered you from like pursuing different opportunities as well? And you can mention that like we'd love to hear about that like at like Notre Dame, since that's where we are, but you could also talk about like throughout your experience.
Thankfully, I haven't had any blatantly obvious bad experiences at Notre Dame. Thankfully, I have not had that. I think I was very, when I came to Notre Dame, I already had a job. Right? I had a real good paying job right on Chicago, Michigan Avenue in Chicago, a big city, a big environment, whatever. So I feel like they were looking for me to kind of set the table a little bit, whatever, and kind of bring my own flair to Notre Dame. That's why they brought me here, right? So from that, I had the confidence of knowing that I was doing something right. You know, so I don't feel like I had so many of the negative interactions that I probably had in Chicago. I remember one instance when I worked in Chicago, I had a German chef. I worked at the Intercontinental Hotel. Don't hate me for saying that story, but it was almost 12 years ago, and I had a German chef, and he made a comment to myself and one of the Muslim chefs that we work with as well. And he's like, I'm not sure which one I should be afraid of. He's like, you robbing me or you blowing me up?
Wow.
And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
You know, and both of us were in our 20s, right? We were young, ready to go, whatever, right? Ready for our culinary careers, and like to have somebody who traveled the world and worked in Germany and worked in Bahamas before, whatever, say something like that in a kitchen setting. Even though he thought it was a funny joke, right? He laughed it off, whatever. Neither one of us laughed, but that was the most blatant, obviously, that I had been discriminated against, whatever, and it soured things from there on. You know, until he left, whatever, I felt like I couldn't really have an opportunity to raise in my career, and that really is to your detriment, whatever. When you're going to be working for somewhere, and you're trying to grow up through the ranks, and have somebody that have that ideology about you, and to think it's funny enough to joke about, you know, like it's just kind of crazy. But thankfully, not here. Thankfully,
that's good. I'm happy to hear that doesn't really happen here. That's nice to know, or at least not to that extent.
Too, yeah. I mean, so I do other things on campus. I do a group called Embrace, and so we try to make sure that we're being. It's a diversity and inclusion group for the UEE, and so
for the what? Sorry.
The UEE, the unit. UEE is like the money generating avenues on campus. So like the bookstore, Legends, Relief Catering, the Morrison, we all fall under the UEE.
Okay.
So we do we have monthly meetings and stuff like that, whatever, and we invite guest speakers in, and we try to suss through the discrimination that we face on a daily basis, not just for us, but like people who are handicapped or our homosexual community, whatever, that we really support. We try to embrace all of it. Embrace Indeed is our call, the tagline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love all of that. I really like all of the leadership that I'm seeing, like just throughout your talking. Like it sounds like we really have like great leaders like working in these positions.
I'm not gonna too many roses myself. I did win a Presidential Leadership Award. But,
oh, okay.
That's different.
Tell us about that. You introduced it. Let's go. Go ahead, get into it.
So I started a program, I think I told you about it. It's called Cooking with Cops. And so I got invited to do a program back in Chicago with some of the chefs I work with at Michael Jordan's. And it was doing football season. And we know how Notre Dame is doing football season. Football is king here.
Yep.
And so it was impossible for me to get away to do the event, whatever. But essentially it was a program that was started to kind of build the ties between the underserved community, the African American community, and the police officers that serve their communities. And so I wasn't able to do that program, so I asked for permission to start a program here on campus. And so I had started that program here. We worked with the Robinson Center, a couple of Holy Cross. We worked with the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA as well, whatever. And we just I bring 20 kids to campus. For me, the first time I saw a college campus when I was doing my college tours, when I was trying to pick where I was going to go at. And so I feel it's really important to get in the kids' head when they're young that this is attainable. You can do this, whatever. You're in South Bend. This is accessible to you, right? And so I bring them to campus deliberately so they can see it, and it could be an environment. They're working in the ballroom, they're working in the kitchen with myself, and then I bring in police officers as well. We started with the Notre Dame Police Department. We bring in St. Joe Police Department as well too. We brought in state troopers. I'm trying to start it back up again, whatever, because COVID kind of put things on a stop for a little while, whatever. But we're in the planning stages to start it back up in 2023. And so through that program, I brought in 80 kids to see Notre Dame, see the kitchen. It would be 2 Saturdays in a row. The first Saturday, we would do everything from scratch cooking. And so that was good for the kids because a lot of times they weren't familiar with the ingredients that I was using, right? I grew up eating canned vegetables. The only like fresh vegetables I had was like greens or like corn during the summertime, right? And so like a lot of things were in the cans, and I want to make sure that these kids were seeing things that I never saw at that age, whatever, so it can really change their mindset and really change their mood about it, whatever, right? And so we were making sure we were making pizzas from scratch, making in dough and everything like that. And I wasn't putting pepperoni and like sausage on the pizzas, whatever. We're doing artichokes and we're doing like peppers and stuff like that, and kale and stuff like that. So it's like they're building that mindset that you're gonna branch out from a young age. So through that program, I got nominated for the Presidential Leadership Award, and I actually won it in 2020.
Awesome.
And so that was a really big accomplishment for myself and my family.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love to hear that.
Yeah,
this is all so cool. I love talking about like all of this. Wow.
Really, we had met over this past summer, and I remember you were telling me about that. And I remember I told you, not only was the work that you were doing, amazing. It transcends, what we think of really doing, but it's also so necessary. It's necessary for underserved kids, black kids to really see what they can become, And one of our earlier episodes that we filmed, we talked about the importance of positive black representation. And, we primarily focused on media and things of that nature. But what you're saying right now, it directly ties into that too. Because we talked about, a lot of kids, they feel like they're, especially in underserved communities, low-income communities, you feel like you're confined to being, a rapper, entertainer, comedian, some sort of thing like that. You don't really see yourself, becoming a professor, a lawyer, things of that nature. And you really don't see yourself becoming, a chef. It's rare that I can come across, a black person who's also a chef. A lot of us, we can throw down in the kitchen. We can throw down in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But it's rare in my experience to really find, a black person who is in the kitchen, really in restaurants, cooking, and also using their skills and their capabilities to teach other black kids how to do the same sort of things and inspiring them. So I really want to say, thank you for all the work that you do, because the amount of kids that you've impacted, the amount of career, journeys that you may have changed, you may have inspired some kids to go off to be chefs, and they're going to grow up to be, the next famous black chef, the next famous, exquisite chef. They're going to be cooking all around the world, and that's the sort of seed that you planted. And I just want to say thank you for that, because that's
100%.
a big deal.
And to kind of like follow up on the praise, like I'm going to offer more right now. Like, I love how, like, you're obviously the executive chef, but I love how, like, you take, like, a step further than that. Like, you can just really confine yourself to the kitchen, but you don't do that. Like, you do a lot more, like, for the community, for your community, which is amazing. And that's really, like, inspirational and admirable. So I really love that.
Yeah, I grew up in, like, the hip-hop stage where I remember KRS-One always said, each one teach one, right? And so I really embodied that. And then when I was in college, probably about your age, in junior year in college, my wife gave me a book called Pay It Forward. And so I read that book with her. It was talking about how you can be like a blessing to somebody else, right? And it was like you encourage you to do 3 things for 3 people that you didn't know, like strangers that you know, whatever. And so like through those two things, it kind of really encouraged me to be a difference, right? In my neighborhood in the west side of Chicago, like my dad was one of the only dads in the neighborhood. So he was a professional. He was going to school at the same time I was going to high school, whatever. And he ended up getting 2 master's degrees since I was in high school, right? And so like that education, that was one thing that you can never take away from somebody, right? Once you get those degrees, you kind of have, and you build your resume up, whatever, you can kind of do anything you really want to do with that, or you should be allowed to do everything, right? It gives you the opportunity to step into that role and possibly succeed in that role, right? Or you can find something else and re-envision something like that, whatever. So this was pretty much a big opportunity for me to do that, whatever. And I can't do it by myself, right? And I didn't get to hear by myself. So I'll make sure I'm a blessing for somebody else as well too.
That's
that's
so
awesome.
important. You know, we need more people like you out there. You know, I remember when I was younger, I grew up, you know, in the hood for a little bit, and you know, I was one of the only people that actually made it out, and that's just because my mom had an opportunity to go, you know, start a career somewhere else. You know, and I think about some of those people that, you know, that we left behind there who didn't have those sort of opportunities. You know, some of them, and I'm quite sure they're either dead or in jail because they just didn't have those opportunities, and there was no one there really for them to, you know, uplift them or to show them a route that didn't involve, you know, crime or violence and things of that nature. And so what you're doing is really inspiring. It's inspired me. I'm sure it's inspired you,
Yes,
to really go off and do a lot more. You know, we have this show where we have this platform where we try and create impacts, you know, verbally as much as we can. But also, you know, I look to myself sometimes and I feel like I can do more, you know, actionable things as well. So to see you really doing those, that really inspires me. And I hope that for everyone else that's watching out there, I hope this also inspires y'all to go out there and do something for your community, you know, do something that can create lasting impacts for others.
100%. This gets me thinking. So obviously you've become like this source of inspiration and like a model for people. So I was wondering, like, as your career was developing and as you were getting older, like, and exploring different like opportunities as a chef, were there any like other Black chefs that you looked up to and kind of like you were like a model for you?
There weren't a lot. I mean, honestly, I hate to say it, whatever, but I had a few Black chefs in my career before, but there were not a lot of models for it, whatever. And so through that, you kind of got to look internally. You know, like my grandmother's a chef internally, right? Because she's been cooking from scratch for her whole life, whatever. And so, like you said, we know how to throw down there, right? And that's we know how to take like something from nothing, or whatever. And that started back in the slave days, whatever, being given the lesser of ingredients, whatever, and still figuring out a way to turn it and like the starting from scratch, whatever. And so like recently I learned about Edna Lewis, who was a chef, and she was grew up in South in Carolinas, and she was like one of the first farm to table chefs available, right? And like that's the thing right now. Everybody wants to be as fresh as you can possibly be local and use those local ingredients. And so now as I'm growing up, as I'm I'm in my 40s now, whatever, and so like seeing that now and looking back at it, and that's why it's important for us to get out there, get that message out there. You guys are doing an awesome job getting that message out there as well too. You know, like don't sell yourself short on that either. You know, because there are a lot of times when you could just be out partying or doing whatever, and you're here and you're putting in the work, and you're doing the research, and you're watching the debates. I watch, and you're paying attention to what's going on in your world, and that's really important. That's vital. You know, like you guys are gonna take it from wherever I leave it at. You're gonna take it and run with it, and so. Gotta make sure I leave that fresh for you guys so you're ready to go with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I wanna, you know, you brought up a good question. I kind of want to add it on too. You talked about recently hiring a Black chef over here, and I want to know what sort of things you do to mentor him. What do you do to kind of guide him to ensure, you know, look, this is what I've been there, done that. You know, this is the things that I've encountered. These are the sort of things that you can do. These are the sort of things you can improve on. Like, what do you do to mentor and guide him and really plant that seed of, you know, you're a Black man in a field that's, you know, not predominantly composed of us, but here's what you can do to really stand out. Here's what you can do to keep on moving forward and improve every single day.
Well, first of all, I have to say, Chef Ken, I tried to recruit him for I worked with him for 7 years in Chicago, downtown Chicago. And I remember when he first came into work at the Intercontinental Hotel, he was an intern. He was still in culinary school there. He was just working a few shifts there. And just watching him be able to grow from in, and I had been at the hotel for about 7 years at that point, whatever. So I was a little grizzly veteran a little bit, whatever, but he was just starting out, and I saw the potential in it, right? And so we both had lived in Indiana and worked in Chicago, because my wife and I decided that we couldn't afford to live in Chicago and buy a home. It was too expensive, and so we ended up living in Valpo and just commuting back and forth to the city. So Chef Ken was living in Holbert, and I have been trying for the last 3 years trying to get him out here, right? And so, and previously I wasn't in the position I was in now. And so I was just a sous chef, whatever. I was trying to get him to be a cook. And so I wanted to get him in a pipeline, whatever, so we can grow together, And as I go up, I can build him up as well. And so when I got promoted for exec chef, I'm like, hey, look, at some point I'm gonna have a chef opportunity come available. I need you to be ready. And so he started building his stuff up, whatever, getting that mindset to be ready to take that step, right? And so when I had the opportunity, I wanted to make sure that he was able to earn it himself. And so he came in, and I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with how it works in the culinary field, but our interviews. So I'll tell you about it. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you do an interview as a chef, your first intake interview is like any other job. They're just gonna basic information. Where'd you work at before? What's on your resume? Who'd you work with? As far as like a chef or anything like that, whatever. Right? They're just getting that basic knowledge. As you get deeper in the interview process, you got to do cooking demos, right? So you're coming in and you're doing 3 to 4 course meals for an audience, right? And so you're trying to build a meal out, whatever. And when I first came to Notre Dame, I had to do 4-course menu from scratch for 6 people, and I had I had 2-hour time frame. And so I'm coming in, cold, starting it up, whatever. I have my list of ingredients and stuff like that, whatever. I'm building it, and I'm building 4 dishes from scratch, and a dessert. I had to bake a dessert as well too, whatever. So you get in that mindset or whatever. It's the best thing about culinary is the meritocracy. Either you can cook or you can't, right? And so I brought Ken in and I put him through the same process. I'm like, you're gonna earn this job, whatever. And he did a fabulous job at the tasting. We had a couple of other chefs that worked there. We had our food and beverage director. We had a director of the hospitality as well too. And they all voted for Ken unanimously.
Wow.
And so he was ready to go. So I gave him an opportunity. He's just going to run with it, right? And that's all we asked for, right? I just want an opportunity to show you what I can do. Just get me in the door and let me run from it. And so now, as mentoring him, whatever, he didn't have the same obstacles that I had. He has somebody in his corner 100% and wants him to succeed, right? I want him to be able to take that step. And it's just not Ken. It's every person I work with. All my cooks. A lot of time we try to hoard the information, which is to our benefit, but to everyone else's detriment. I do the reverse model. If it's something that I know that I can share with you to help you grow in any facet of life, even if that means you're going to leave and go somewhere else, I'm going to still teach you. So that when you're ready to go, you're a reflection of me. You can say, I worked under Chef Calvin, this is what I learned, or I worked at this place, this is what I learned. And I want to be able to have an opportunity for people to do that when they go out to the world. So whenever Ken is ready to take that step, he'll take that step, whatever, but he'll earn it, he'll be ready for it. That's what I'm here for.
That's awesome.
That's amazing, especially just being, I hate to say courageous. I feel like that's not really the right word, but, open enough, I'd say, to share your experience and to share, the tips and tricks to get by. One thing that we see a lot as people get older, as they get more experience, like you said, they tend to, hoard, their experience. They tend to hoard things, and they're like, oh, well, I didn't have anyone in my corner, so you're not gonna have anyone here. You got to build up yourself just the way I did. So it's good that you're able to attach yourself to him, so you can, y'all can build each other up. But obviously, with you being more experienced, you can also, build him up a lot more. So that way, whenever you go, or whatever the case may be, and it's him as the executive chef, or he's in a higher level, he can do the same thing for the next person, and then the next person, the next person. It really does begin that legacy, and it starts that train of action, of making sure you can, build up your people, build up your chefs, build up, the Black community, things of that nature. So I really appreciate that. I
did too, and it makes me think about how clearly you saw talent, and you were I want to be able to help this person improve their skills and give them the opportunity if they continue to develop that talent. So I think that there's so much talent in the Black community, in our community, and there's just not the opportunities or the mentors that can help them kind of develop that talent or give them the opportunity to fully express it in the form that they choose. So I think it's very important, and I really love that you were able to see his talent and give him an opportunity based off of like how we like manifest that. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's cool with kids, whatever, because like you see like something they're good at, whatever, and when you're a kid, you think I wanted to be a marine biologist. That was the first job I wanted to be, right? I saw Flipper, the TV show back in the day, whatever, and I'm like, I'm gonna be a marine biologist, right? I had no idea what the hell that was, but I thought it was cool, whatever. But like, sometimes when you have that idea when you're a kid, whatever, like I started cooking when I was like 5 years old with my grandmother, right? I never thought that can grow into a career, right? It might be something. It might be writing for someone else. I used to write. I was in theater and stuff like that. I played a clarinet for 8 years, whatever. So like, I always thought that I could do something with it, right? But I never knew what it was. But sometimes it's just like someone else seeing that you have some potential and helping you grow. Like when I bring the kids on campus, where I show them like it's not just the culinary field. You're seeing culinary. You're seeing hospitality. We have a Black general manager over at Legends, Raquel Henderson. I think you met her as well too.
Sir.
And just seeing more of our own faces, where seeing ourselves in other professional careers. We have the dean of the law school is a Black gentleman, right? And like seeing some of those things where like, if you see it, you can believe it, right? And so I'm just bringing them to campus just so they can see everything. And there's so many opportunities that Notre Dame can provide. So many majors, so many like. Right now we're on TV, right? We're on TV, we have a podcast as well, right? There's so many different areas that the kids can go into, whatever, but if they don't think they can come here to see it, they'll never believe they can do anything else. So it's not even just about culinarians, but it's just about putting that belief in somebody that you can do something a bit greater than what you think you can do.
Yeah, that's very true. I think exposure is very important. Just being able, so that's one of the reasons like I really love that you bring these kids here, because like you were mentioning, like people don't even know that this is a possible career, and there's so many different careers out there. There's so many things that people can do. Like, and I feel like going to college is like one great example of it, because like I came here and like I feel like the career pool like multiplied by like 1,000. Like there's literally so many opportunities, which is amazing. So.
Yeah, there was a kid that he lived in my dorm last year. He transferred out of Notre Dame, unfortunately, but his name was JJ. And he was he could throw down. He got accepted into some of the top culinary schools in the world.
You were mentioning
he got accepted into a bunch of culinary schools over in Europe. Like, oh my goodness, he was a great cook. He cooked for us for Thanksgiving. Actually, we were here last Thanksgiving, and he cooked here. But he was one of the first people that really showed me that like Black people can be chefs. Cause growing up, I never really looked at Black celebrity chefs or Black culinary artists. I never really looked at that much until I met him, and he was. Every single day he was in the kitchen, in our little dorm kitchen, just cooking up, whipping up something. And, he was always motivated to, teach other Black people, here's my tips and tricks, here's what I can do. And that just, whenever you were saying that, it really just reminded me of him. I wish he was still here. It was over at Rice University, whatever, I guess. But, I miss his cooking, I'll tell you that much. But, yeah, just what you said, it really reminded me of him.
Well, that's for us, for Black people, that's community, right? I remember every holiday, like I was lucky enough, my grandparents lived across the street from each other. Like two of my mom's brothers married two of my dad's sisters. And so like it was built-in community right there, right? And so holidays were easy. I could do both grandparents' house, like my grandma across the street, she got some peach cobbler, whatever, got some greens over here. My grandma over here got some chitlins, whatever, like just being able to flow back and forth, whatever. We had a lot of aunts and uncles and stuff like that. So food, for me, has always been about community. How can we share it? How can we come together? Whatever, like barbecues during summertime and stuff like that. Whatever, like that's about bringing the community out, And so like that's why it's always like it's an ideal situation, because you bring so many ideas and so many careers that you bring together, because there's so many people that come to Morris Inn. It's just not they're here for traveling, they're here for business, they're here for leisure and stuff like that. Whatever, but once you get those people here, you kind of be able to interact with them and to kind of learn from them and kind of leash some information from them. It just helps you grow and do more stuff everywhere else.
That's very cool. You mentioned like the community that comes about as like kind of like centered around food, and I think that's something I learned as I came to college too. Is like everyone loves food. Like we just all love food. So being able to like experience or like go to different restaurants, like have different people like try different people's foods, have foods from different cultures. Like it is a very cool thing that like can bring people together. Kind of like music in a sense too. It's like there's so much to explore, so much to try. And there's also so many like similar foods too that I've noticed as well. And I find that very cool how like even though we all are from different cultures, we essentially have so many of the different so many of the same kinds of foods, which I think is really cool.
Everyone has a fried chicken.
Yeah,
it's hilarious. But
I think that's really cool.
I was spoiled too. I mean, I went to college in Indiana as well too, in a little small town called Rensselaer, Indiana. It was pretty much nothing there. But I just remember like having an opportunity to really like dive into like a lot of different things. Whatever. Like I was born in Chicago. There's so many places you can go if you want Polish food. You know.
Yeah. I'm from Chicago. Yeah.
So, like,
exactly.
we went to school and,
Yeah.
and now I'm starting to try to get out in South Bend and see like what they have to offer here. Right. I went to this little place called Lucky's in Elkhart, which was really good a few weeks ago. Whatever. And just trying to branch out and see like how we can kind of bring that stuff here as well too. You know.
Yeah, I
always encourage my cooks. So I have a lot of cooks from different places. I have a lady from Jordan, and so she brings that Mediterranean flair to the kitchen, whatever. And like I said, I worked with a lot of Asian cooks before, whatever. So you're all that stuff is like a melting pot, right? And all we care about is does it taste good?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's the big thing is if it tastes good or not, whatever. So it's a good opportunity.
And kind of speaking to that, we're running a little bit short on time, but we have time for maybe 2 more questions. I have a personal question of my own that I have to ask you,
yeah.
but there's a question I want to ask before that. Thanksgiving just passed, it was just last week. I got to know, did you cook anything for Thanksgiving, and what did you cook?
So I work Thanksgiving.
Oh my
I work
goodness.
Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving Day, whatever. So we usually have it. In my culinary career, I've worked pretty much every Thanksgiving.
Wow.
And I usually have Black Friday off and that weekend after that, whatever. And so I ended up making ribs this weekend. I made ribs for Thanksgiving. And usually I do some like a turkey, I brine a turkey and stuff like that, whatever. But this year, my parents came in from Florida. My in-laws were in as well too, whatever. And like I don't know, it was just didn't. We ate at the Morris Inn for dinner, and so I had my turkey fixed at work with her, and so when I got home, I'm like, I really want some ribs. So I made ribs instead, so I was out on the grill.
I mean, you could have let us know. You could have sent us a plate or something,
Get across campus to the Morris Inn and eat at Roy's whenever you want.
Yes, sir.
You let me know you want to come over.
Absolutely.
I'll take care of it.
Yes, sir.
That's dangerous because we're taking. We're definitely gonna take you.
Go every day, every weekend.
I'm coming in for breakfast. But at least you got to plug us on your podcast and your
Absolutely.
TV show. Whatever.
Absolutely.
Make sure you plug a Roy's.
Oh yes, 100%. We will.
It has to be mutually beneficial.
Yes,
Yes,
we
sir.
will. We will. Yeah.
And then finally, this is my personal question. So I consider myself like an air fryer master, right? Like I can cook anything on the air fryer.
Master. That's a
Master on
strong
the air
word.
fryer. I've gotten some flack because people tell me that if you cook stuff with an air fryer, you're not really cooking. You're just putting it in the air fryer and that's it. Now I want to ask you, as a real chef, as the executive chef, highest level there is, can I consider myself an air fryer master if I season my food, I marinate everything, I do all that, put it in the air fryer, cook it, perfect temperature, take it out, and it's perfect. Can I consider myself, a chef in a sense, or am I still just ignore me? You're an amateur. I don't want to. I'm not gonna take you seriously. Are you on the side of my friends? Or you on the side of me? That's my question.
So I have an air fryer at home.
Uh-huh.
I use it quite frequently.
Okay, that's promising.
So that's definitely good, and your benefit as well too. I mean, in the kitchen we have essentially the same thing as the air fryer. Right? We have convection ovens, which are ovens with fans inside of it, and so all it's doing is circulating the air around and making stuff crispy, essentially, right? So I equate that if you're using an air fryer, it's just a smaller version of a bigger oven, right? You still have to be able to know when it's done. You still have to be able to season it. The truth is in the flavor. The truth is in the pudding. So I wouldn't say quite a chef yet. If you can't do it like to a large magnitude of people, whatever, but you're definitely on your way.
That's a good
Y'all heard that.
comparison.
For everyone
That's a really
that be
good
talking
comparison.
mess about me, y'all heard that. Executive
That's how I
chef, y'all
started,
heard
man.
that.
I started in my dorm room with a George Foreman grill and 2 burners, right? And I was plugging it in illegally and making it in my room before I went to culinary school. So I mean, that could be an avenue for you if you want to do culinary. Let me know. And
I'm a little too lazy. I like eating the food. I don't like all the prepping time that goes into actually making it sometimes.
It is really fun to cook though.
It is,
I've
yeah.
especially over COVID, I started making a lot of different dishes for my family. I'd be I just find recipes online and I'd be like, okay, I'm just gonna go buy this stuff and make it and have my family eat it. It's a lot of fun. I like it. It's a lot of fun.
That's where we started because of the fun of it. Whatever, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So do you have a final question you want to ask?
Okay, I do have a final question. It's kind of random, but you kind of mentioned how sometimes you get in the weeds and there's just so many things happening. And we mentioned football weekend, for example. So how does managing those busy weekends or days where there's so many people coming in, how do you manage that?
So so the kitchen I work in Roy's, whatever, I have a speaker, right? I have a Bluetooth speaker that I put
You
on.
were telling me about that,
Play
yeah.
music, right? And so that automatically relaxes my cooks.
Oh.
So we have different variety of music that we play every day, whatever. When we're busy, it's straight hip hop, right? We put on some Missy, we put on all kinds of stuff to get us ready to go, pumped up, ready to go. And so because we were doing like 700 people in a meal period during football season.
Oh, wow.
Right, and so we're doing 700 for breakfast and brunch, where we're doing 500 for dinner and like that. That's just, it's all going all weekend long. And so the mood of the kitchen is based on my mood. And so that's why I say we got to stay calm in the heat of it. And if I'm cool, I'm calm and collective, everybody else feeds off of that. And so I put the music on, we all relax, we cook and we have fun with it. I encourage the wait staff to keep bringing more people in, turn those tables, whatever, so we can get those high check averages or whatever. And it's just a lot of fun for me. Honestly, that's the most fun of my day. Is being able to be in the mix of it and work with my cooks on the line. You know, like that's the fun part.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I really like this. I really like this episode. I think this is a really good one.
Easily our best episode. Easily
Yeah.
the best one. Easily.
I feel like we say that every episode, but you know, it's okay.
We do, but I feel in my soul that this one is the best one. You know, easily. Do you have any parting words, any sort of things that you want to say to the audience?
No, I just really encourage people to do what their heart feels, right? Lead with your heart and make sure that you're taking care of everyone else that you can possibly take care of, and be a blessing every single day that you can be out there. Even if it's not culinary, like I said, not all of us are going to be chefs or whatever, but we're all working together as a community, as a black community, to make sure we really empower each other and make sure we lift each other up. And we just got to make sure that we're a stepping stone for somebody else and someone else's success. That's the biggest thing for me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. You know, we want to thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Executive Chef Calvin Metz, for taking the time out to come onto this show, to spread so much wisdom, spread so much knowledge, and we really appreciate it. For those of y'all watching, if y'all ever in the area in Notre Dame, y'all check out Roars, y'all check out Chef Calvin. Everything he's cooking out there, everything his cooks are cooking out there, y'all check them out. Y'all check out Roy's, y'all check out the Morris Inn. And that's gonna wrap it up for us. So as always, we haven't said this in a week. It feels so long, it feels so long, but as always, black is beautiful, black is love, and black is excellence. We love y'all, and we out.